I'm a history nerd.
So maybe it's
We're
you have
live.
a non-history nerd.
Numbered.
Here we
Yeah.
go. Now it's recorded, and I'm gonna use that as a little soundbite. Like I'm a history nerd. All right, hey guys, it's Richard Brownbag. It's talk 12:30, 1:30. It's where we talk about technical news, programming tips. We have guest speakers, tips, tricks, productivity hints, and things, all that jazz. Site is virtualbrownbag.com. You can join us on Slack to continue the conversation and also get the invite link so you can join in person. But you also can just watch it on the Google Hangout Live and just watch us as we talk and make fools of ourselves. Well, at least I make fools of myself as often as possible. Hey, did I miss anything, George? I'm trying to think. Pretty easy, open. Anybody can share.
Oh,
Good.
right. Don't share stuff that's going to get you in trouble because we
Yes.
stream directly to YouTube.
Yes, do not share your API keys or anything that would be seen as bad or your secret from your company. That's about it. So today's guest, we're going to start off with, is Ryan Riley, good friend of mine. We've known each other for many, many years. He's F# MVP, Monad extraordinaire expert, and but we're not going to be talking about that today. We've been talking for several weeks about TypeScript, and we're looking for people that use TypeScript and know TypeScript. And I was talking with Ryan, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we totally use TypeScript, and it's awesome." And I was like, "Okay, well then come share," and he has agreed. So, Ryan, without further ado, let's talk some TypeScript.
Sounds good. So I only have about 30 minutes, so I'll kind of keep it a little bit short here. But I figured I'd kind of go over some high-level points about TypeScript and then show kind of some of the things we're using. I didn't get all of them into like a demo, unfortunately. So, for example, I'll show some documentation on how React can be used with TypeScript, which is actually really quite good. But I didn't get it into my demo app yet. I was having some problems getting it in, so I won't be able to show it. But it does work quite nicely.
That's what I thought when I was looking at TypeScript. One of my interests is like after doing all the React stuff is like, okay, this would be a whole lot better with types.
Yeah. So the TypeScript website is typescriptlang.org, and there's a playground on here that has a bunch of different examples. So like the first one that comes up is like just JavaScript, and the main point here is that valid JavaScript is valid TypeScript. So you can actually have an existing code base, change all the extensions to .ts, and the compiler will just output the same thing. It removes white space. You can have it remove comments. You can have it minify and that sort of thing. But you can use whatever you have today directly in TypeScript, which is kind of nice. So it's a superset of the language, not like a compile to JavaScript language. And then there's some other things on here, like you can add types. Basically, this is like type annotation. So as opposed to just saying this takes a greeting, I can specify that it takes a string. And if I try to, for example, pass a number here, it should give me a red squiggly telling me, hey, I did something stupid. I'm trying to pass a number where it's expecting a string. One thing that does continue to work right now, it's like nulls. You can pass that in as a value. TypeScript 2 is supposed to be released fairly soon, I think. And that actually has guards for nulls. So you can actually block this, and you can have something like saying that this greeting takes a string or a null. And then it would let you pass null. And if you don't do that, then it would actually not allow null.
What about like undefined?
What's that?
What about undefined and stuff like that?
Yeah, that would be another one. That's another thing that's supposed to be coming. So if you wanted to let all those things come through, then you'd have to explicitly allow them in TypeScript 2. Again, that's not out yet. It's coming. But that's actually quite nice because this basically makes it so that you can do like null guarding and things automatically without having to manually do it yourself.
But if you never get undefined as not a function when you're coding, how are you having any fun? I mean,
I don't know. That's a good question.
That's how you keep score of how well you're doing every day is how many times you get undefined as not a function.
Exactly. So what was it before? But, anyway, yeah. So the types are kind of serve either as documentation. It can give you like some hints, let you avoid some form of unit tests where you're just checking to make sure that it allows certain things and doesn't allow other things. So it's kind of handy. It also helps with IntelliSense. So like if I'm doing new greeter here, for example, it tells me I need to pass a string.
So question is, when you do your editing, what I guess obviously, I guess you're using Visual Studio now that I think about it, right?
Well, I use that a lot. I also use VS Code and Atom, Vim. They all have support for some of this. The IntelliSense aspects are better in Visual Studio and VS Code and Atom.
Okay.
And Vim, I think there is a plugin for Vim and SpaceMax and some of these other editors that allow you to have some of the IntelliSense, but some of it's based on the same sort of thing you would do with any dynamic language, where it's sort of like what words are currently, or what names are currently used in the file, most of the files. But the types actually do help provide better IntelliSense. So like, even if you just want some help in knowing what's available on any given object, TypeScript can help you with that and make that more obvious. And that's useful. I know most of the DOM and all these other things well enough that I don't usually leverage that very much. But it can be quite useful if you're trying to hunt for a specific method or function or something.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different from people who come from more dynamic languages, where it's just like after a while with Ruby and stuff, you're sort of used to not having it, and so like it's not bad when it's missing. But and I will say it's kind of interesting when I'm doing some like experimenting with the TypeScript and some of the others and stuff. When it does pop up and it tells you things, you're like, I sort of miss you.
Yeah.
Because I was like, during doing Ruby before the internet would have been really hard.
Yeah.
A lot of, what methods do you have? Okay.
Yeah. And TypeScript also has support for basically all of ES6, and that includes modules. So you can use the different module syntaxes. It actually supports, I think, all of them. I haven't ever used the AMD syntax directly, but the like equals require syntax from CommonJS is available. The new ES6 module syntax is available, so you can say something like
Wait a second, what do you mean it supports modules? Like, what happens? What does it actually do when you import a module?
This would actually generate, depending on how you configure your TypeScript output, it'll either generate the CommonJS or AMD or some other output. You can actually just have it compile to ES6 if you're going to go through Babel as a second phase. So it basically supports whatever module syntax you're running on. It just gives you the syntax. It's really like a syntactic sugar. So instead of having like the require JS style AMD format, I can type something like this, and it will compile that into the structure that you would want to see if you're writing require JS in like ES5.
So then you would still have to run it through like either Browserify or have require JS running?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess,
it supports those things.
But I guess it can't support System.js, weirdly enough.
Actually, it can. Because System.js, I think, is also...
but System.js is just import, and
Yeah.
it's working like require, and it's doing parsing in the browser.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure.
Well, I think that's if you turn it on to generate ES6
Yeah.
module syntax, then you can use the System.js. And it knows it natively, so it can pick it up directly that way.
Okay.
And you can also do like UMD, so it'll actually export like the thing that you can use for either require or CommonJS. So there's several different settings for how you can make those work.
Right, and you can see like that's what it's outputting right there. Is that it was basically creating a required JS closure.
Yeah. And as you can see, like let is allowed. You can also use const for things. So like all this stuff is supported. In fact, both of these should probably be consts. I guess that's preference, but yeah, so like those things are all supported. So you can basically write ES6 in TypeScript, and then have TypeScript be your ES6 compiler.
okay. I was about to ask, do you use them both together? I guess no, you just use TypeScript, plain and simple.
Yeah. You can use both together. There's some things like channels and I think decorators are supported by TypeScript, but they only compile into ES6. So you have to use like Babel to transpile into JavaScript from there. There's several things that they haven't implemented in the TypeScript compiler to generate to ES5, but it is the syntax is supported. It just depends on like what you're targeting. And I think more of that should be coming to TypeScript as it evolves.
Yeah, it seems like, because decorator stuff is like still proposed, right?
Yeah.
Last time I checked.
Yeah, and all this stuff, I mean, this is all pretty standard class stuff, except you have like type annotations.
Okay.
Same thing for inheritance. It's basically the same. Again, there's type annotations, but this is effectively the same as what you'd get in ES6.
That JavaScript's looking good.
Yeah, and the JavaScript's not too bad.
If I wrote that JavaScript on the right-hand side, I'd just be like, ship it. I'm like, well, it looks good.
Yeah, so generics are also supported. So you can say, like, here's a generic type. I want to declare what that will be later, so now I can change it down here. The number. And this will turn red, and I can make this 1, or 1 plus 1, or whatever. And that will pass that value through here, and the message now will be 2.
That's pretty cool.
And then there's also a cool thing with like unions and type guards. So unions are something that if you're used to, like F# or Camel or some of the other languages like that, it basically says this is a type of either this or that. Otherwise called a sum type in some languages or some parlance. So you can say that this name or name array is either a type string or a string array. And then you can create a guard, where you can check this and whatnot. And there's also like a guard function. Show an example of that. So over here in the documentation under advanced types, it talks about these union types. So pad left here is saying padding is any.
Okay.
And the idea is you can actually pass it a number or a string, but there's nothing in here saying like what it's restricted to. So you can pass it an object, you can pass it over all kinds of things, and then we just throw an error. So what TypeScript allows you to do is you can use these union types and say take either a string or a number. Now I've restricted what this is supposed to be.
Again.
And then I can check that it is a string or a number, and it should actually help me with IntelliSense. Again, once the next version comes out, 2.0, you can also pass, like, you can tell it to not allow null and undefined unless explicitly allowed. Okay. And in that case, it would actually not let you pass null or undefined in here as either, which would be quite handy once that's available.
So it's great to capture, I guess, during compile time, but what about runtime? Is there issues where it wouldn't capture it?
Well, it generates. Good question. I don't think it's doing anything to make sure. Basically, the compiler at design time is making sure you're not passing things in your program.
Right.
But if you're doing stuff like across boundaries and things where you can't check these, then the runtime won't catch it. So if you're basically exposing an API that you want your UI to pass in, and somehow that doesn't correctly type against this function correctly, I mean, it should. And we're using React right now. And because we're using React, we actually have a lot better control over the types versus having like data binding and weird things like that happen. We don't tend to have any problems with nulls or undefineds coming through, but it is possible at runtime for those to slip through. But the compiler has done a really good job of catching these types of things for the most part. So the type guards are basically take these union types and let you define something like this. Like I can say I have a function that gives me either a fish or a bird, and then I can also create functions that determine whether it is a fish or a bird. So like in this case, I have a function isFish. I can say it takes a pet that's either a fish or a bird, and then I say it returns a pet that is a fish. It's basically telling me a true false, is this actually a fish? And I implement like how do I know if it's a fish or not? And then I can use that. And what's really cool about this, I'll switch over to Visual Studio real fast. I have an example in here. So you notice this isPhone comes through. I'm saying contact is instance of phone. In this case, contact is instance of address. And down here, I'm actually using it. So actually, a better example might be let's have a print kind function that takes a contact. Now I can say if is phone contact. It's console.log and is phone. We'll actually print what it is, so let's say contact. And now notice that it's actually typed it as a phone in this case. So because it passed this, it determines that because this is telling me that it is a phone, I'm going to now type this as a phone. So I'm going to have whatever values are off of that that type. So in this case, it has a number field that I can access.
Wait, so how does the is phone exist? It's just automatically generated, or did you have to?
No, I wrote that myself. So you actually have to write these yourself, but you do
Oh,
this
okay.
kind of special thing here where you're saying that I'm providing a type guard saying that this thing is or isn't something. But the compiler's not smart enough yet to do that for you. And notice here, I would have contact again, but now it's typed as an address, and so I get text as the output.
Is this the extra book?
Mhm.
I'm not going to put a throw an error because it should be one or the other. But,
So will contact know? So the else statement, the contact will know is an address.
that's correct. Yeah, because it's either one or the other. I'm saying contact is either an address or a phone.
Yeah.
So if it's not a phone, it's going to be an address because of the type declaration up here.
Where do you define your types? Sorry.
These are actually being generated in this case. They're
okay.
classes that are being generated by the tool that I'm using here. So this is the other part I wanted to show. So Attack is directly built this library that's an open source library. Called Gluon. Let's see if I can get back to my. And you can see the document. Go away.
Mhm.
You can see documentation at takis.com/gluon. And basically what this lets us do is like declare services as functions in F#, and then it will generate a client that can consume those. It generates types and things like that. Currently the types are all kind of restricted, so we only have a few things that are allowed. We do allow like unions and records and tuples, a lot of F# related types. And some of these are actually like recursive types, like tuple is a list of type, which means it could be a tuple of
430.
other things. But the way this thing works
No.
is you'll have like a
Yeah.
file like this, which is F#.
Oh no.
And I'm defining these functions on the server that do
Wednesday.
take some action of some kind. Like get added adds 1, get added 2 takes 2 inputs, returns the result of those 2 added together plus 1, and so on. There's a couple of like sample functions here just to kind of prove that things work.
Wait, so what is that F# code doing exactly?
This is basically providing some API. So you tag it with remote to expose it as an API on the server. And then it's also generating a client to consume it. So all this code is actually taking in those types. For example, person is defined somewhere out here. Person is defined as it has a birthday, date time, contact, which could be an address or a phone. So this is like a union type script. That's what we're just looking at. The name and age. It's generating those types and generating the functions that I can call. So like right here, I'm actually calling a so s.older, s.younger is calling a server-side function that's been generated in TypeScript. So I can call it. It takes a Gluon client type that actually just provides a lot of like the glue, the jQuery, Ajax type stuff that needs to be run, and like a very lightweight set of default types that are built into Gluon, so it understands how to translate things from over the wire from JSON into JavaScript.
So
Or
where
that's from the short side.
so where does Visual Studio Code get the definition of person from? Like, it's not actually doing a Visual Studio Code isn't doing a query to a server that's running, is it?
Correct. No, it's not.
So where is it getting the definition from?
It's actually a generated file. So if
Okay, so you just have another file somewhere in your.
yeah, it's generating this thing.
Okay. Yeah.
And so this is like the generated TypeScript to JavaScript, but it generates a TypeScript file that we then convert to JavaScript, and it has all the definitions of the types and this function call signatures and
Are
all that
the
stuff.
TypeScript definition files like no longer a big thing?
Oh, they are. This is just I don't think this actually generated one here because it doesn't need it at this level. But there is one.
I see your typings in your sample spa as the React DOM typing.
Yeah. Yeah, this one needs it. I think there is a DT. Let's see, so generated t.ts is what's actually generated, then it compiles it to JavaScript. And the web app that's running only uses that generated JavaScript. It doesn't care about the TypeScript.
I guess I mentioned it, but like I just said it. But for anyone else on the call, do you want to explain what the TS file is?
Yeah, TS is a TypeScript file. So it's basically equivalent to JS.
I'm sorry, the D.TS.
Oh, the D.TS, yes. The D.TS is a definition or declarations file. So look at one of these. And this basically just lets you expose TypeScript bindings over an existing library. So this is the React DOM one. And it's basically just giving type signatures for things that are in React DOM in this case. You don't need to, it doesn't have any implementation, it's just exposing like how the signature should be exposed in terms of types. And so when you reference these, in this case, this one's actually using a TS config. So this file is just saying these are the ones I want to include in the compilation, so I don't have to include them in every single. But in this case, I only have one file that I actually care about, but I don't have to include like references to all the different files that I want, either in the project or in the at the top as a reference. So you can do it in like the configuration. I mentioned module earlier, so in module here I'm using UMD. You can have other things. Target, you can target ES5, ES3, and ES6. So there's a lot of different options you can use to determine what you want to, how you want this to go.
So this is pretty much, you're not also running like anything like ESLint in the meantime, right? It's taking the place of it.
There is actually a TSLint, which is similar, and it's not, it probably doesn't do as much since the compiler does a lot of the type checking, but it still does things like, do you want to use single quotes or double quotes or semicolons or not, or things like that, for more like stylistic checking, more so than necessarily type checking and things. But, yeah.
But you write perfect code, so you don't need a lint.
That's right. Yeah, so this has been super helpful for us because it's allowed us to iterate really quickly in terms of defining APIs, consuming them in the UI.
So I have a question for Gluon for the app. So it looks like look at line 136. Looks like stylistically, and this is me inferring stuff, you can correct me, but it looks like you say, hey, I have this service, I want to call the dictionary check function or method, and then I pass in, I guess, the instance of the client, and then you get a function back, and then you execute the function passing the parameters.
Yep.
And then that returns a promise. So stylistically, explain like why that was the flow you wanted to do.
I have no idea. This is just the person who implemented it did it this way. And the original idea was that the client could be swapped out at a later point. Right now it uses jQuery, but there's nothing strictly necessary about jQuery in this. It's just how it's implemented right now. Okay. And that's the biggest part of what the client code has. It has some like type definitions, and then like how do I make the calls across to the remote. Okay. In this case, it's jQuery. A potential replacement might be like a fake AJAX call with like a set timeout or set interval or something like that. So like for testing purposes, you may want to use a different AJAX library or something. But the idea was that you could pass in a different one or change out the client. But right now, the way it's typed, it wouldn't actually work that way. Okay. That was the kind of the general idea. As to why it's not comma delimited or just baked in. Yeah. That's I don't know. That's just how the author of the library wrote it originally. I think it was just easier to do it that way to start off with, and then it's been working for us. We haven't modified it since then.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It was just more as like, hey, that's an interesting approach. Kind of see, it looks like it's based on an opinion of something. So I want to see if it was a strongly held opinion on something that we could.
No, not really. I mean, like if we knew we were always going to use jQuery, we might have just embedded it, and so we didn't even have a client at all. It would just always call through jQuery.
Yeah, but then people would like throw tomatoes at you in the street and stuff. And
yeah, so I don't know many people who are using it, so it may just be us at present, but it's worked really well for us.
It looks pretty straightforward. It looks pretty neat.
Yeah, and then there's like it supports enumerations and tuples, which are just like in TypeScript. These are arrays, the two things. But you can the same thing with I think ES6. There's like the expansion patterns, like you do like the spread operator. You can.
Wait. So those are tuples or arrays in TypeScript?
These are, well, in this case, I think this is actually two tuples.
Like
an array of tuples.
Like TypeScript, which would stop me if I tried to draw a value 3 out of one of them?
I think so. Let's see.
That's cool.
I'm sure this is actually the right symbol. It's something like this, I think.
Well, yeah, but that would just be an object, right? Or wait, what? All right, I have no.
Let me try this.
Yeah, like if you just created an item, an array, quote unquote, with 2 elements in it, and then try to draw the third out.
I'm forgetting how this works. TypeScript does support tuples. It's the same sort of tuple structure as in ES6. I think you can do something like.
Well, yes.
Yeah,
Let's see,
there's
ES6.
tuples here. They have a little ES6 thing that I'm looking at. That you have to define it, and then you do use the array syntax to define the tuple.
Does ES6 have tuples? And I didn't know this.
The TypeScript is. I haven't looked at
just
ES6. Yeah.
I think this works. Yeah, so like in this case, I'm saying this is this looks like an array, but it's actually a tuple because I'm explicitly saying how many parameters there are in their types.
Yeah, but now try to draw value 3 out of tuples, and see if it complains. That's what I'm.
Maybe not.
No. Okay, so
Okay,
it's
so
just
there-
treating it
I
as an
think it
array.
will,
Then. Okay, there it is.
Yeah. So if it's explicitly defined this way with like the specific number of types, then it will make sure to do this correctly.
Okay.
I think that's as of 1.8. I don't think that was in there in 1.7 or maybe in 1.6 it wasn't in there yet. But
This tuple thing from here, the blog says it is 1.3 was the link I clicked on, but that could be smoking serious crud. Never mind. It's announcing TypeScript 1.3. See if that mentioned tuples is on there. Yeah, it's a tuples there in 1.3. So there you go.
you can also do stuff like
So
the list sort of comprehension stuff, where like I can take the head and the tail
nice.
off of an array. So since we're using F#, a lot of our team are familiar with like these styles of things.
Yeah,
So
that's
use a lot of
in
this type
ES6.
of. What's that?
Isn't all these features in ES6? I had to Google
Yeah.
what a JavaScript tuple was. Okay, so that's not a TypeScript specific.
Correct.
Okay.
The syntax on line 147 is.
Yeah, this specifying it like this is.
Uh-huh.
It's like in ES6, I don't think that there's a guaranteed way of knowing, yeah, this is definitely a string number tuple. You're just, like, you have to know that, and then hopefully it doesn't have a runtime error or anything. And in this case, TypeScript can give you the guarantee, as it were, that, yes, this is in fact typed correctly, and you can take these things out with some hope of it working properly.
Ah, gotcha.
Again, 2.0 will help, because like right now I can still do this. And I'm not going to get any problems. It's a type of saying string number. So I'm still getting a string and a number, even though this will actually fail since there's nothing in there.
Is that the big thing in 2.0, null checks?
Yeah, null and undefined. That's the biggest thing I think I've seen. And I think async await may be coming in 2.0 as well. That's like with promises, similar to what was introduced in C#. You can specify a function as async and then await within that function. It's similar to the way that generators work, where you can kind of yield and then resume within a generator.
Yep.
Pretty neat. So I know you got a meeting coming up, right?
Yeah, I do. So
Yeah.
hopefully this was helpful and informative.
Yeah,
There's a whole lot
it was.
more.
It just means you have to come back.
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking.
And then the other cool part, real briefly before I drop, I'll get back to. There is a page on JSX. It's like React support, and basically just change the extension to TSX, so TypeScript X instead of JavaScript X. And you basically can write your React components. It supports, like in the case when you want to cast, they actually allow you to use as. So you can say I want bar. So in case like you have like a union type, you can say I want this to actually be this part of the union versus another part. It does type checking on everything, and you can use functions, just like you can in normal React. So it actually supports that as well, and it will type these correctly. So if you have a render function and you return JSX in that render function, it will correctly type. This is a React.element or React.component, depending on how you're sending stuff back out, and it will take props as a parameter when you're using the function syntax.
Cool.
So we've been using that a lot, and it's actually been really quite nice. We've really enjoyed using React.
Wow, because did you guys try Flow out, which I just hear associated with React a lot more than TypeScript?
Yeah, because Facebook built that one. We haven't tried Flow. I think it does a lot of. I know it does some compile time things. I think it also may have some runtime insertions that it adds. I'm not positive on that, but there's actually a good comparison of the two, and they're very similar, but there are some kind of give and take where like Flow will catch more of some things and TypeScript will catch more of other things. So it's kind of a difference of like what you're trying to do. Flow is more of a contract checker or code verifier, prover, that sort of thing, and TypeScript is a lot more about the tooling and helping you get syntax support and that sort of thing. So kind of more about what trade-off you want to have in how you're writing your code and that sort of thing. But I have to drop. Sorry to not going to stick around longer.
No problem. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. Yeah, it was really helpful.
Now I want to see someone implement all of that in Sweet.js.
Well, honestly, I didn't get a chance to derail him because of my next conversation. Because I was looking over a weekend at Elm and trying to get up to speed with that, and I was like, "This is like F#. Like F# is the C# as Elm is the JavaScript." I'd be like, "This reminds me so much of it." I'd be like, "Why isn't Ryan
That would be
doing
great.
Elm?" Like I guess like union types and all this checking and stuff. I was like, "Oh, that's pretty interesting." So I'll derail him next time, and also everybody tell him. We'll just be like, "Hey, we're talking about TypeScript." And show them and be like, "What about Elm? Why aren't you using?" And what is a monad? And then we run and we leave the room. We ever turn off the cameras and we just we'll grab a beer or something.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's cool stuff. Yeah, I think Elm is interesting. I haven't seen a lot of it, but I mean, it occupies a similar space. And honestly, with the type unions, yeah, it's doing kind of similar stuff.
Yeah, like after you see,
it's just
like,
Lispier, basically.
Right. Yeah, and after a lot of stuff that so I didn't know because we can't know everything or whatever, but you see how they do Elm and the Elm structure and architecture, and you look and you're like, hey, this looks a lot like Redux, and you're like, hey, I can understand this. And it's like, yeah, because Dan Amaroff was like saw Elm and was like, dude, this is totally awesome. I'm gonna just do it this way. And so you see where the origin is from there, and I think it actually works a little bit better in Elm land because of the union types instead of the checking for the actions, at least in that flow. You can have a lot of time. You can have that all checked out before it goes.
Yeah, you say that, but I mean, think of the people working on TypeScript. Like, that's the biggest typing badasses out there,
I guess so. Yeah, I was saying, a lot of people have been like the stories I know from people using Elm. They absolutely love it, and it's fantastic for them.
Well, yeah, because the Lisp people are badass at it, at programming. Period.
Yeah,
that's why.
So yeah, I'm still learning it, still going through it. Let's see, but it's definitely taken the crowd that I'm circling around and into is definitely getting into that world.
Yeah. All right. Anyone? So yeah. Do we have anything else anyone wants to talk about?
Yeah, I'm sharing a couple. I'm looking and pulling up some stuff. If I then share on here, let me share some of my screen. Let's do. Here we go. All right, so one came across this the other day, and I thought it was pretty awesome. It's called ElixirSchool.com, and it does a good introduction. I mean, Elixir Lang already has stuff that showcases their things, but I think Elixir School does a pretty good job of simplifying it and being straightforward. And actually, I learned a couple of things I didn't know by going through it. So if you're interested in learning Elixir, and besides you and doing Elixir Lang, I think Elixir School is a pretty cool resource for this. The other part is I don't know if I shared this last time. I have written down that to share on Virtual Browser, but I don't think I did. Is for all those screencasts and talks you watch and you want to speed it up, there's actually a video speed plugin for Chrome that you can actually increase the speed at which it's played back. I think YouTube and some other things have it built in now-ish, but you never know. And it works on HTML5 videos. So this was given to me by a friend who was saying, "Hey, I found this and I'm using this and it's awesome." So if you're watching some screencasts and you're like, "Speed it up, wrap it up, B," here you go. You can use this and you have it play back at 2x speed. I was using this I've been doing some Unity programming, and the Unity tutorials in particular are like really long, and they are really slow in terms of you're like, yeah, I know, yeah. It's like, like, so it's like speed up. I put it like 2 times something higher than that because really I'm just looking for certain little tidbits.
So wait, so what's the difference with that and like regular YouTube? Speed up, slow down.
I think this it says it works on HTML5 video, so...
does YouTube regularly not have the speed up on it?
I think YouTube does, but I'm thinking maybe like if you're watching some other screencasts that someone does.
Yeah.
This person in particular might have been using it for Egghead, so... because I know they've been doing a lot of Egghead videos recently. So, yeah, that's what I thought too. I was like,
Yeah,
hey, you know what?
doesn't have slow down, which was very annoying. Watching those Abramov videos, he is a really smart guy, but it's tough.
He in particular has been watching those.
His accent is very thick, and like the fact that they don't have any closed captioning, just him against the world. Yeah, it was. It would have been really useful. Thanks for the suggestion.
No problem. Yeah, I think in particular he was watching those videos on Egghead, and so I know he has. So that's probably what came up with this, because I bet he was like, "This needs to go faster. How can I make this faster?"
I know. I just complained when I quit.
Well, now I gave you a solution. How about that?
Nice.
And let's see. Let me pull up a talk that I watched this weekend. Share their recommend here. I watched Talk on Elm by Richard Feldman, and I found that very useful, good introduction. In particular, it's 2 hours long, so this is one you can probably speed up as well. But I was doing other things as I was listening to it. In particular, I like they made the case of how they've been using Elm and why it's interesting and what they. Just a good introduction. And again, it's one of those where it's like, it's about time I got up to speed on this stuff because circle of friends are beginning more and more into it. So yeah, thought it was interesting and cool. Because I was like, I was like, that's what I need is another language I need to learn, right? But it is pretty cool. It reminded me a lot of F#, like I said.
Cool. So, Mark, you wanted to talk about Xamarin a bit, right?
Yeah, I can do it next week.
Okay, you take a little longer. All right.
Yeah, let's get something. I'll work with you, Mark. Let's see if we can get something really cool, like a walkthrough or some of the stuff. Because you have to remember, a lot of times, like me, like I don't know, and I dabble in Xamarin, I think, in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to be up to speed with what's going on. Did you watch the WDC stuff at all, Mark?
Yeah, I've been watching it. I'm trying to catch up with the videos because I have to give a rundown to my team of everything that's new. So
What was the big stuff? What are like the highlights?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Okay, yeah.
There
I saw a
wasn't-
lot of chatter, but nobody seemed excited about anything.
No, I mean, I'm trying to think. The only thing is that WatchOS 3 has some better features. I can't really think of any. I mean, Swift 3 has new things, but that's about it. It's mostly programming and new stuff for Watch. It's not. There's nothing special coming to iPhone. So I don't know. I don't know if they're out of ideas or what.
Yep. This is it.
We're gonna put S on things. We're just S, everything S. Well, I mean, what else is Swift? If they add new things to Swift 3, aren't they? I mean, that by default it's adding things, right? Like.
Yeah, but we already kind of knew what was coming in Swift 3. If you stay up to date with Swift, they pretty much adopt things. They tell the community what to expect. So all the changes were pretty much known to be coming. So there were no real surprises.
Well, it could just be a change. I guess their communication structure, maybe.
Yeah.
A little, more and more open and informative. But what was the thing about messages? iMessage. Someone said something about lasers or something. I saw, and I'm like, I don't understand what changed with iMessage.
I guess what changed was it's opened up to developers now, so
Okay.
I don't know how you put that in
Chatbots.
an app, but
Oh, okay, that's gonna be awesome, right?
So now you're going to be able to order Domino's pizza on iMessage.
That's a positive outlook of things.
Wait, really? Is ordering Domino's pizza a positive thing in your life?
I think my scale of what is negative is very far deeper and lower than ordering Domino's pizza. I'm a more pessimistic person there.
It's just not a great day when that happens. All right, I have a couple things I can share too. Let's see. Okay, so I'll start with this. Share my screen. Yeah.
I always like moving to myself.
Yeah, I know. So I saw this. I found this earlier. It's cheat sheets, all nicely styled cheat sheets. You can create your own. Just kind of community service. So this is like an infrastructure for making cheat sheets, which is pretty awesome. And there's some really good ones on here, especially really top-rated ones. You know, search for Vim. Oh, not this sheet. I want to search the main community. Oh,
So this is pretty cool. I'm curious. Do you have any books? Well, I mean, you're not a Ruby guy, so that's a little bit different, I
not
guess.
really.
But yeah, because I've been prepping for like tech interviews, and after seeing, that's another talk I guess ago. There is James Edward Gray's second talk about tech interviews, and he was doing some stuff, and I was like, okay, these are all very good tips and advice to get up to speed on things. So, like, I guess I'm looking now for Ruby, and I'm trying to figure out, because it's like little things they always ask questions on stuff that you're like you never use, and that's why this joke was this talk, I guess, the tweet about like the interview is whiteboard, a large hadron collider, and like how do you build one, and then your actual job is take this bug and move the login button 3 pixels, so it's like when you've been working and doing freelancing for a long time, like you just get the stuff done, and now it's like, okay, if I want to look for a remote full-time gig, they're gonna ask questions like, hey, what is a Ruby block? And I'd be like, it's do and end, and you're like, okay, I probably should know more about what it is. Kind of ironically, it's like I knew the most about C#, but now like I've done so many other language frameworks, I actually don't know it's like surface levels what I have. So I'm looking at stuff. So I'm looking, it's like, okay, maybe these cheat sheets have, and it's like, oh, well, the cheat sheets are just going to show me how to use them.
right.
And I really want to get into more like, okay, I can more intelligently explain the send message method, maybe, or something like that.
But you're looking specifically at Ruby stuff?
Yeah, I think JavaScript would be fine too, like, because things like that too. Like, because I've read JavaScript the good parts, but I wouldn't say the JavaScript the good parts would I guess inform me enough to give me a good response and stuff like that.
I mean, this is the book I always recommend.
Yeah, I've been reading that actually. It's parts of it kind of kick my ass actually.
Yeah, it melts people's brains.
But it's really the first book on JavaScript I've written that's really written for programmers, and at least I learned a ton of new terminology about combinators and all kinds of weird computer science stuff that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. So.
Yeah, and it's attacking stuff basically from a Lisp point of view, which makes a lot of sense. JavaScript. So this book, for JavaScript, at least, I can recommend that. It's super, super good. I love everything Reginald Brathwaite writes. I think he's awesome. Okay. Next thing, I'll just bring this up. So C# has the lock keyword, and I had a whole revelation this week. Actually, a couple days ago, about what it actually does and how it doesn't actually do what I thought it did. So, in the past, I was writing something like this. So I would have my public, And inside of there, I might have public method. This. And then I might have. Okay. So let's say I only want these methods to run one at a time. So basically, I don't want do that to run while in the body of do this, and vice versa. So what I had been doing was using locks. So read only object locker equals new locker. Oh, sorry, new object, and then doing something like this. Locker, right, and maybe do something like that. So that does not do what we're talking about. Specifically, it will block stuff in certain scenarios. So when you are executing in here, and then another thread arrives at do this, it will block. What it will not do is lock any code from entering that other thread. Specifically, if you are doing something like generate some event or some service dot do, right? And then you have public class some service with a and inside of there it's doing something like current thing doer do this. So basically this lock is not going to stop it from entering. The reason why is because the same thread trying to enter it, and that was a whole revelation for me. It was like, holy crap, I've been using this incorrectly for synchronization. With the other additional realization, it's like, well, the way that I thought it worked was stupid, because if it did block that, it would block itself, the thread that it's currently running on, and deadlock itself. I think this is like something where my basically JavaScript is just completely overriding my knowledge of threading and making it, and because it's all so simple in JavaScript and gets so complex if you think about threads, that synchronization gets it sucks to have to think on that level again. And just my brain wasn't thinking on it. I spent like a good hour and a half trying to be like, what in the world? Why is that not working? So that's one, just a PSA I want to put out there. Another PSA I want to put out there is had quite a bit of time spent on an issue this weekend, and actually all last week, where if you're using SignalR, which is a really, really good Microsoft service for asynchronous communication, and you're using it with Self-Host, which is a pretty solid, and the Microsoft implementation of Katana, which is the web server, you cannot stop and restart the web server within the process. Well, you can, but SignalR will not let you connect again. And this is like, I was sure it was like my fault. I had done something stupid and ended up running through everything and then kind of creating a new, even creating a GitHub project demonstrating exactly what was going on. It's like, look, the second time I connect to this shit, it just doesn't work. It fails when I try to connect to it. So eventually, actually, a coworker of mine, Seamus, he was like, he was playing around with it, and he was like, okay, I tried this really stupid thing, and it worked. And it's basically taking when you're setting up SignalR, taking the resolver and assigning it the default resolver. And it was like, that seems dumb. Why would that work? It's the default resolver. That's what it already does by default. So then finally started digging through their source code and found this is how it's created, which seems kind of reasonable, except for if you got to think, if the web server started and then disposed, and the resolver is a singleton, and something in the resolver did not dispose correctly, then the second time you run through it, you're still
still
getting
there.
the wrong
Exactly.
resolver with the wrong stuff that's disposed. So,
That makes
holy
sense.
crap, it makes sense, but does it?
Well, it makes sense. Your diagnosis of what went wrong makes sense, but
Yeah.
I think identified
Yeah.
that someone is not disposing that thing.
Oh, and
correctly.
frustratingly, I've been trying so hard to get like anyone from the Signal R team. I get the impression that there's nobody working on Signal R at the moment, which is kind of scary and rather annoying. But like, I've reached out to specific individuals and just got no response, which is a real bummer.
A lot of stuff is open source now, isn't it? Is Signal R not open source?
Well, it is open source, but still. So I filed an issue, and then nobody responded on it. Like the issue wasn't that like, okay, was me showing this and be like, is this a bug in Signal R, or is this a bug in the documentation which talks about how to dispose and restart it?
Yeah.
I don't know which it is, and if no one says anything, then the only recourse I have is to start looking through the source code, and frankly, I don't know anything about sockets, so we're really talking about going at a very low level
Yeah.
and trying to debug it there, which is why I avoided it as long as I did. Like, only once I kind of knew what I was looking for did I actually go look there. Alright. I can show, let me see. I have a couple other things I could show, but does anyone else have anything they'd want to share?
Only thing I was going to talk about, I guess, take like is maybe do one time. I think George was working on doing like a CSS talk. It's like I know you're way more experienced with that, but like showcase some of these things I like call like simple fixes. Like to me, like CSS transition is the easy win to get a sort of like, you know, so instead of when you hover, like it just shows the red, it like transitions smoothly into like the change in color or whatever. I think that's a pretty neat little trick. But I don't have anything made up right now, so it's something I'll work with. But no, that's my thing.
So the big thing with that is I would like some solid questions about like things you can do, why some things works, or what scenarios are enabled or something like that. Because I have a rough structure in my head for a CSS workshop, but I mean I'm thinking like, in my head it's like 3 hours long. So something to focus on would be nice.
If you had a question, one thing I'd take a look at, but anyway, it'd be actually we'll see if you get see if we pull some up. It's like, what if I want to make the color of what if I want to change the CSS for something that is highlighted via anchor tag? Like you clicked on something and it went to like one of the anchors on there, and I want to style it different. It seemed like you did that with your tab example.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So let's do this. Just kind of dump these into the Slack, and kind of as stuff comes up, we'll figure it out.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. All right.
Seth, how's your React Redux app going?
Well, I did something. So it was super easy to get the get sessions working. It was awesome. Like, so you just send an object and then it just hydrates the store in a really slick way. And I saw the pattern that you showed us a very long time ago and stole it, which was basically defining your initial state outside of your reducer, which is cool because then your reducer can technically be pure, and then you can just use that and make an API call. However, I encountered some weird bug, so I'm finally I really like this website called timertab.com. It just makes sense. I use it all the time. Timer-tab. And I'm like, okay, so that's how they are doing it. Like, have an hour, a minute. And so I threw all the forms in there, all the form fields in there, and now it's like, oh wait, my timer isn't starting. Something weird with the some value is not getting passed to my action. So I think I'm thinking like git bisect to figure it out. So basically, right now my app is broken, but I feel it looks really cool. I feel really good about it. I removed some like the whole thing about basically using a provider and only importing your store one place basically on your root component. So it's like I removed all this ugly store references, so looks cool, but doesn't work.
Yeah, we run into that time. You like do a change and you're like, and everything is now broken. Generally, that's install Xcode. Xcode's like, hey, I want to update, and then for my Ruby world, be like, nah, Xcode, I'm gonna pass on that because you're gonna break all my things. I'm gonna spend a day fixing them.
Learned your lesson. Yeah, so that's been fun. One thing I've been asking, this relates to the CSS shootout, I guess, would be like, I'm trying to organize I'm building a new site, and for whatever reason, I actually just, as someone who has the word web maybe in his title, I have not actually built a lot of websites from scratch. I really have not done a lot of freelance stuff, and so I know a lot of things work, and so I'm thinking, so a very simple question like, how do you really organize a CSS file or a project with your CSS? There's like a bunch of philosophies about it, and I'm trying to figure out like, okay, so I should have a main CS, or is that just Sass? Because when you see at import tag, it's imported asynchronously, which is bad, right? But it's so like, I don't know.
I think you have all the different opinions. I don't think no one has a good solution on that. Besides, it becomes a kitchen sink of everything and stuff. But yeah, if you put me as like a bias, I use Sass most of the time, and yeah, I have like an app CSS, and that imports everything. And in theory, it compiles all down to one file, and it's happiness and unicorns and gummy bears. But it's probably like, the thing is that there's probably old classes and old things that aren't used there anymore, and it's not complete 100% perfect, but that's generally my strategy. Generally works, and I have generally a strategy of what classes I put them and how I label them and how I lay it out. Like I generally have a colors one, and then I have one that's common, so common variables, and then I have a mix-in one, and so I generally do that and some common name schemes. Mostly I found it's a team effort. Like your team just comes up with patterns that they like to use, and then it's just Wild West from there, like.
But yeah, the end. Unfortunately, with CSS, there really aren't any great style guides for that. But I can kind of give my opinion at some point as well. Oh, hey, one thing I really quickly wanted to ask. So Seth had asked me to help him code review some of his stuff, and it's in a GitHub repository. Does anyone know a really good free service for doing code reviews of stuff like that? Because I mean, what I was gonna do was fork it, comment in the code, and then PR it so you could see the comments easily. But is there a better way to do it?
I don't know. I've never heard about it. I'm just Googling.
Isn't there I don't know if you do, but doesn't GitHub, isn't one of the whole things about a GitHub pull request is there's a lot of, like, now you can put videos in those comments, so that's another option.
So,
by the way, I don't mind the way that as long as you put maybe a keyword like PM or something, it would be very easy to find all of your comments.
I want to know the answer anyway, but the problem. So if you had written your code and done pull requests to begin with, then I could go in and comment on lines in the pull request.
Right.
But if you have a repository and a state in the repository, I don't know how to. I don't think GitHub helps with code reviewing that.
Right. Okay.
And that's what I'm asking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anyone has any thoughts on that.
No, I've never seen anything like that, but that would be kind of cool. Most stuff I see online, they're looking at pull requests as well.
Yeah. All right.
Well, sounds like you need to build that, George.
No, I don't.
Get to it.
And we've made it to an hour again.
Oh, but hey, what do you know? Yeah, it's been good. So cover with TypeScript. Did a little bit of tuples discussion. We showed Gluon. We did some just intro to the TypeScript. We did found a JavaScript book. Allonge, or how do you pronounce the last name?
JavaScript Allonge, Allong.
Yeah, it's apparently is the bomb diggity for learning some awesome JavaScript stuff. Shared that video speed plugin, Elixir School. We talked a bit about what else we talked about.
Cheat sheets.
Cheat sheet.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, it's what cheatography, locks in C Sharp,
Locks in C Sharp.
SignalR and Web API having issues, or not SignalR and Katana. Yeah. Yep.
Video speed Chrome extension.
Yeah, there we go. Video speed Chrome extension. Yeah, that's pretty good. And we're going to get Mark next time. Going to share us some Xamarin and pester him. And apparently, Mapple's not innovating at all, according to Mark. Tweet
That's
that
right.
out. They're bored and they're running out of ideas.
Yeah.
2 hours later, their stock price goes up.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks a lot, everyone.
All right, thanks guys. It was fun.
Talk to you later. Bye.